two, one.
Hello, everybody. This is Arwen Lewis, and you're listening to The Arwen Lewis Show. Today, my very special guest is a band named Bridles. Bridles is the alchemical pairing of electrifying grooves and high octane sincerity. Brought together by mysterious happenstance while sailing the seas of Craigslist, the duo now conjure healing waves for cleansing wounds of the past. Member one vocally identifies ethereal entities for which member two may transmute into corporeal form. Bridles will take you on a journey through a musical substrate of synthetic bass, guitar, and machine drums. You can find out more on Bridles socials at bridles_band on Instagram and TikTok, and stream them on Bandcamp, Apple Music, and Spotify. They've Andrew and Kara from Bridles also have a few other projects that you can look up. One called Silk on a Sunday. That's at Silk on a Sunday on Instagram. And you can stream Silk on a Sunday on Bandcamp, Apple Music, and Spotify. And Karalinaluna, you can find out more about that project at Karalinaluna on TikTok. Stream that on Bandcamp, Apple Music, and Spotify. So, hello, Kara and Andrew of Bridles, and welcome to the Arwen Lewis Show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
This is such an exciting day because you just dropped a single, didn't you?
We just did. And yeah, we worked up until the very last minute. We submitted you everything. So it's been a long time coming and it feels really good.
Our first release.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels amazing.
Yeah, and you have so we've just got all this fresh music to share on the show today. How exciting.
World premiere.
Yeah.
Cool. This is great. And we're gonna talk all about that and just the evolution of your band. And so I did want to talk a little bit just about your other projects really quickly before we just dive into Bridles. So you have a couple other projects, one called Silk on a Sunday. Is that yours, Andrew?
Yeah, that's my solo project.
Okay, and then Karalinaluna is yours, Kara.
Yes, but it wouldn't have been possible without all of Andrew's help.
Well, why don't we start, Kara, why don't we start, let's talk a little bit about Karalinaluna, and then I want to hear about Silk on a Sunday.
All right. Yeah, I guess this kind of ties into how like we started playing music together, but I've always just written a lot and I didn't really have much musical knowledge, so I've kind of just had these like melodies in my head where I've just like gotten something and created this song. But since playing music with Andrew, I've learned how to play keyboard and I'm still learning, but I have these basics which are allowing me to have these tools to create songs. And with his help and guidance of learning how to have chord progressions and like write melodies with voice leading and stuff, I was able to create this song. And it was just this random weekend where he's like, hey, let's just like record this. And we spent the whole weekend, stayed up till like 3 a.m. doing it. And it's funny because it was like in the process of when we were recording all of our other stuff, but it really just like allowed me to have this song that I wrote kind of just during that time. Like everything happened so fast. And it just felt really good to be able to kind of see like this process and how it, just starts from like this little like tune in my head and taking a couple of days to write and then putting it out there into the world after, all this work has been put into it. But yeah, it's fun. And like on my TikTok, I do some vocal stuff, but I tend to do a lot of just like synth music, and sometimes I'll mix in more like vocal stuff. And that's kind of always evolving. But yeah, now that we're done recording this album, I think, we both might take more time and like dive back into our solo projects. Just because I think it's really good to like do that and have like that energy put into those places, but then also like coming back and then creating stuff together is really fun.
You kind of develop more every time you go back into your solo work, right? Then you bring something new to the table, it sounds like, when you start collaborating.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, I feel like I mean, I never did music before because it was just something I was like really insecure about. And so I always just did things by myself. And working with Andrew was like a really big step. But at the same time, like it's allowed me to feel more comfortable working with someone. But at the same time, like I do feel like I tend to express myself best when I'm just like in my own little zone and like by myself. And that's like when I can do the best writing. So it is kind of this like really special kind of like spiritual practice in a way, because it's like something I get to do by myself.
Yeah, and I want to come back to talking about like the connection between spirituality and music because I know that's like a big thing for you and your music in general and this project. But first, Andrew, why don't you tell us just a little bit about Silk on a Sunday?
Yeah, it was just a solo project I started as kind of a little, I don't know, music therapy experiment for myself.
Okay.
And I played lots of um, guitar before in bands, and this was one to play around with synthesizers, and kind of all started when I got my first drum machine.
Okay.
And then it was like, oh, now I have somebody to play with, a little machine. And yeah, and it just slowly unfolded. And one of my friends told me, um, well, I was talking to them. I was like, "Oh, I need to go home and like practice more." And they're like, Haven't you practiced enough? Like, you need to get to work and like make something."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that a lot of synthesizers, and I don't sing too much, so I use vocoder, which is where you play the keyboard and sing at the same time,
Okay.
and
What is that?
uh, kind of like a Kraftwerk
Okay. So
sort of sound, like
you're
We
like,
Are the Robots.
and are you singing the melody that you're playing on the keyboard at the same time? Is that what you mean?
I don't have to, but it has helped me with singing a bit.
Yeah.
It's more like a almost like like a Peter Frampton talk box kind of thing,
Okay.
where it's like you're playing the notes with your hands, but then you're adding syllables and like the phonetics with your mouth.
Okay. I'll have to listen and see what that's all about. That sounds very cool. I've never heard of that before.
It's awesome.
So how Andrew, how long have you been playing music then? So you played music guitar in the bands as before, is guitar your only instrument and until you had moved over to synthesizer, or yeah, what's your musical background?
Yeah, it's my primary instrument. I can mess around on keyboard and come up with things, but typically that's more been just to come up with something to play guitar with.
Nice.
But yeah, guitar is my main instrument. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it.
Are you
Um,
primarily electric or do you do acoustic too?
electric is my main thing, but Kara and I have been doing a lot more acoustic things, open mics and whatnot, and that's kind of been a nice way to push myself into some new territory.
Yeah, and Carrie, you have a really beautiful acoustic guitar, right? And do you play it, or is it just kind of is that just there like to accompany you when you're trying to come up with a song?
I mean, I have it. Yeah, it's just music has been a real hurdle for me to try and continue with. And I just really admire your dedication, because I remember when you were starting to get into music and you were like, yeah, I got to go practice for like 6 hours. And I'm like, dang, she's amazing. Like, I wish I could do that. And I know I can, but it's like being your own worst enemy and like putting that barrier up. But I do have it. And I feel like now I use the keyboard more when I'm writing stuff and like messing around. But there were times like in the beginning of when Andrew and I started doing music together, like when we'd have our music days, he'd give me a little guitar lesson, and then, I'd go home and try and practice. And then sometimes I would try and like write stuff on guitar. But I feel like now I feel more comfortable on keys.
Yeah. It's keyboards, I feel like it's easier, because I mean it's already in tune, first of all. And it's like all you really need to know are like, a few basic chords. But same with the guitar too. Like, I mean, Kara, I've seen you play guitar and I know you're a good guitar player. But yeah, like I feel like it's sometimes all you need is three chords and the truth. That's what they say in country music.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how you two connected. Like, let's hear the story. How did you guys actually meet and decide you were going to start Bridles? And I want
So,
to know about the meaning of the name Bridles.
okay. Yeah. So it's like back in January of 2021 or 22. I had just moved into like this new apartment and I was like, okay, like this is the year I'm gonna make an album. And I was like, I don't have any musical knowledge really. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna figure it out. And so then in April, I was like, okay, I'm going to put an ad on Craigslist and I'm going to look for a collaborator. And so I put this ad on Craigslist and, just was hoping that I would get a response. And a couple days later, I got this email in the morning from Andrew, and he had sent me all of his Silk on a Sunday music and just like a really kind of like beautifully crafted email. And you could tell he was like very passionate about music. And I listened to all of his stuff and I just knew immediately like this is the person that like I'm supposed to work with. And it was really crazy because I responded and the Craigslist link broke. And
No.
I was just like, what is happening? Like this is meant to be. And so I tried like getting in touch with him in other ways. And then a month went by. And then I realized that I had spelled a silk on a Sunday wrong when I looked on Instagram. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I finally like was able to like get through, and I sent him a message. And then yeah, we started talking and just emailing back and forth. And then I basically sent him all of these voice recordings of songs that I had. And like a day later, he sent me back, one of them with like chords and just like acoustic guitar playing underneath. And it was so incredible to hear. And so, yeah, we just kind of kept like emailing back and forth. And then we eventually like had a day where I went over to his house and we jammed for like 10 hours. And then like every other weekend after that, it was like there were some like 16-hour days. Like we were just in the music and it was so fun. And yeah, that's pretty much how it got started. So yeah, he had a huge task of basically coming up with like all the instrumentation. He did acoustic guitar for like all the like chords and stuff for all the songs, but as things grew, and like in October of last year we went on our first musical vacation. And Andrew can totally talk more about this. He's way more qualified than I am, but he built out our entire live set. So with all of the electronic instruments, he programmed everything in. And yeah, everything's kind of just like evolved from that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's really cool. Like, so did you have to change the keys to the songs at all? Or Andrew, were you just able to hear what key and what chords were going to go with your voice?
Uh,
Pretty impressive.
I mean, part of the challenge I gave myself was to not touch the melodies. We have one song that I did kind of tamper with a bit, or a lot. But yeah, I try to keep. Yeah, the first step is finding the key, or like the set of notes. But then even then, you can kind of choose a different tonal center. But yeah, it's like just kind of almost like guess and check with each part or each set of words in the song, just checking a different chord and see how that recontextualizes the melody. And a lot of stuff, yeah, you can really change a melody by putting different chords underneath it. I almost felt like I'm like bending Kara's intentions and putting music underneath, but it's fun. And we communicate about it, and there's lots of times where I'm just like, is this the right chord, or is this the right chord? Which feels better?
Well, it's so cool because you're really like making a piece of art with your music, based on what you have to work with, which is quite elaborate. Which I think is really beautiful instead of just kind of going in with like a set formula before. Um, But yeah, and also something else that's really cool about your band that I wanted to point out is that member one vocally identifies ethereal entities for which member two may transmute into corporeal form. Can you elaborate on that statement?
Yeah, we haven't thought about this in a little bit, but yeah, I kind of think of as like Kara's looking for these certain moods and uh colors, and songs and ideas sort of exist in this whole other space, where they're real and they're there, but you just haven't translated them into some sort of medium to communicate with people. So part of it's feels like getting a grip on a song and then pulling it into reality. And we had this old analogy that we started at when we first started playing, where I think of us as being on a ship, and we're looking for these new islands, these new places to explore, and Kara's the captain, but I'm kind of the navigator, maybe first mate, and she's got the telescope and she's spotting things out in the distance. You're like, maybe that's land over there, and then I'm the one like hoisting the sails, and
Yeah, doing a lot of the work. It's, I mean, just this, like, the album that we're working on right now. We have 5 songs that we're going to be, showcasing of just Bridles. We have 2 more for the main album, but yeah, the amount of time that Andrew has put into our project is just, it's incredible. And he's, yeah, done so much for what this is. And I'm just like, I'm so grateful.
Well, and it just sounds like you guys know what you're doing. You know what your creative process is like. You know what your roles are, and you're flexible, and you create, based on all these dreams that you come up with, you're bringing into fruition musically, which is amazing and beautiful. And that's why we do it, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like this whole process, it's funny because, like, I was trying to get my brother to help me do music before I met Andrew. And he's just like, you write songs completely backwards. Like, you need to like have the music first and like not do it the way you're doing it. And we've definitely run into a number of challenges in our process and like working together, but it's a matter of like figuring it out. And I think, this whole experience has been really great because it has like allowed us to learn what we're going to do moving forward. And now that I'll, have much more musical knowledge than I did in the beginning, it'll make it a lot easier because, there's times where Andrew's trying to like communicate things with me and I'm like, I don't understand. And I know that's really challenging. And so yeah, moving forward, it's definitely going to be a little bit different, but it's just the evolution and growth of, what we're doing together.
Yeah, and you figure out how to create together, and you've created already. So is this like half of an album that we're hearing today? So this is all unreleased music besides Lonely and Scared, right?
Yeah, it's all unreleased.
And then they're playing something from Andrew and Kara.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the privacy and my ghostly lover song, that stuff's all released, but yeah, the 4 other bridal songs that we'll play today, those are all unreleased, and we're hoping to maybe have the album done by like January or something like that.
Yeah, there's some extended guitar solos that I need to put in some hours to practice on.
Well, honestly, thank you so much for letting us give everybody a sneak peek of your music and premiere your single today. It's such an honor, Kara.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you for having us. I'm so jazzed, and I love that you're doing this show. It's been so great watching your whole evolution in music and your growth and all of that. It's awesome.
I think that's the cool thing about music is that it's never ending if you keep following down that, inspirational path.
Definitely.
We're going to run out to break really quickly. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, my very special guests are a Seattle-based band called Bridles. And we're playing tracks that are unreleased, except for their one single that they've released today. And that one's called Lonely and Scared. You'll hear it at the end of the program in its entirety. You can find out more about Bridles on Instagram and TikTok at bridles_band. And they're streaming on Bandcamp, Apple Music, and Spotify. And we're going to take you out to break with their song Come Near and bring you back in with their song called Roads. We'll be right back. Cool. How are you guys doing?